Hi everybody, Savat the Mighty here, and I'm returning with another Eve Echoes video. I'm still on the test server, and I'm doing request videos. So this is going to be the first of many really request videos. I started with the Balgorn, and the Balgorn was the most requested ship on the channel. Now I've decided to just go through and kind of pick at random to do different ships. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in and see what we have here. Alright, so today's ship we're actually going to be looking at the Tier 10 Amar ship, the Coercer Covert Ops. Now, this ship was requested to take a look at, knowing that I'm not really a PvP pilot. However, I do have some general ideas for this ship and how it can be done. Now, I did also have some other requests to kind of show off a speed tank, so I figured this one will kill two birds with one stone. Now, this ship is not going to be out for some time, and this is the test server Fulmination, and basically everything that you do see here can be different upon release, and it's going to be a very long time before you even do see these ships in the actual game. However, let's go ahead and take a look at what I decided to do with this ship. So as it's a stealth ship, one of the first main things that I kind of wanted to look at here is the covert ops. Now, I have used a regular hound in PvP on live server. And one of the things that jumps out when I'm looking at these other cloaking ships is the cloaking targeting delay, meaning that you're not actually just going to be able to jump right into combat with this ship. So I kind of took that into consideration. I figured the main use of these ships here are going to be for the purposes of scouting. Now, I figured once you do find your target, you're going to want to either A, send in somebody else from the fleet to come in, or B, if you're out there by yourself and you're just looking for smaller targets to pick off, then you're also going to be able to want to get there quite quickly, but you're still probably going to leave and warp in once your cloak has dissipated to make sure that you don't have that cooldown time. Taking those things into consideration, what I decided to do with this ship is give it a complete DPS fit, really. Now, in the high slots, what I decided to run with was the Corpy C type small beam lasers. And the reason why I decided to go with this is because I do have extra range. The extra range I think will be important, and keeping track with everything, as well as giving you the ability to stay out of web range for a lot of different ships if you're going at it alone. Also, I did decide to go with two Predator Warp Scrams. Now on here, most likely you're not going to have the Predator Warp Scrams on. However, it is a Tier 10 ship, and we don't know what everything's going to look like when it does come to Tier 10, so I did decide to fit it with the best. This will give it a total of 10 Warp Jammer Strength. On average, you're probably going to more likely see 8 on here. One of the things about this, though, that I didn't go into is the optimal range is 15 km, and on the lasers themselves, the optimal range is 17 km. So you can start shooting on your way in, grab them, and get out. I also did put a Predator Stasis Webifier on here just in case it is needed. I figure another thing, if you are scouting for your group, you can come in, you can help apply more points, and you can also help lock down enemies. This ship is designed to mainly speed tank and has basically no form of actual heavy tank on here. Now, I did still decide to go with a Corpy C-type small armor repairer because I figured one of the things you can do in this ship is you can run around nullsec and look for anomalies, scout anomalies, inquisitor anomalies, things like that, kill people, and still actually be able to do the anomalies. It does have a big enough speed tank to be able to do that, and that should help heal up any ancillary damage that you take. If you are using this just for PvP, you may want to replace this with something like, oh, I don't know, a armor plate. But yeah, I did put an armor plate in there for a little while. Maybe if that's going to be your thing. I really don't know. I think you should really depend on your speed, pick your targets wisely, and you'll be okay. Secondarily, instead of going for an increased tank, I decided to go with two different types of afterburners, or two different types of propulsion. I apologize. You're actually going to have the afterburner and the micro warp drive in here. The micro warp drive is going to be used if you do need to chase something down to lock it down with your predator scrams. And the afterburner is used for just if you just need to speed tank. For the rigs on this ship, I want all damage, laser burst aerator 4, a laser collision accelerator 4, and a laser burst aerator 4, giving this the optimal damage that this ship can have without actually equipping any type of heat sinks on it. It is sitting at max skills with 425.85 DPS, meaning that if you are assisting in a fleet for damage, you are going to put out some pretty decent numbers. And if you're going around hunting by yourself, you should be able to pop some individual targets pretty good. In the bottom, I went for 1 semiconductor memory cell 4. The reason why I did go for that is because in one of the fits that I was looking at, it does make it cap stable. However, in this fit, it does not make it cap stable, but that's just because we have the micro warp drive on there. You take that micro warp drive and basically don't run it, you're pretty much good running everything else. I did throw in a couple of, well, one warp core optimizer 4, and this here is just to kind of help you give yourself a little bit of relief and wiggle room if you do try to get jammed and need to get out of a hot spot. And I have an auxiliary thrusters 4. And this is going to be increasing the speed total of 25% on the ship, giving it a bit more of that speed tank. So this ship has 2,384 shield hit points and 3,395 armor hit points. Its structure is at 2,818. As far as targeting goes, scan resolution of 697, signature radius of 42, and it can lock up to 7 targets. Navigation, it does 515.10 before we add any of the thrusters and everything in. This ship would make for a great scout ship, especially if it has a fleet or a small group of people backing it up. It can go find areas and flush people out, or lead the party to where they need to go. So again, I mainly focus on the PvE aspect of these things, so what I would use something like this for is to actually go out and hunt down scout anomalies, wizard anomalies, in bad space and try to do them myself, and try to pick off some easy kills as far as miners and stuff go that I find just floating around. But as a tier 10 ship that's a destroyer, you're probably going to have way more PvP, higher PvP aspirations than I do with this ship if this is what you're gunning for. Let's go ahead and undock with this ship, and I can show you exactly what it can do for the propulsion. Okay. So if we activate our first propulsion, we can see here. It's up to about 1,320. It's not bad. It's definitely not the fastest speed tank in the world, but it can do it. With those speeds, you should be able to dodge bigger ships just fine. You are going to have a little bit of issues versus much faster ships than you are, but you should also have more DPS than them in most cases. If we go with the micro warp drive, we just have to wait just a second. There we go. We can see that with the micro warp drive running, it gets to much faster speeds. So this one would be using if you're trying to chase somebody down, or if you're in a bad situation and you realize that your afterburner isn't enough and you think you can get away from them. Be my guess. It takes you up to 2,700. All in all, this ship is pretty zippy for also being a stealth ship. Go ahead and refresh this real quick. Let's grab a quick mission, and I can go in there and just kind of show off. Pretty sure if you've already speed tanked before, you know that this ship is very much capable of it. But I did just want to go and display that a little bit. So if you get out to your areas where you're farming and you're looking to do like T5, T6 scout anomalies, it might be able to do those as well as some of the lower ones as well. It can get out, stay hidden. Like I said, it can scout, and take out ships, and PvP and PvE at a pretty good rate.
Warp drive active.
Alright, we're going to set our orbit. let's go ahead and get in there. So orbiting at 15, it should be able to lock with the scrams. So if you did have somebody locked down, you should be able to get there, lock them up, and continue doing work. Missiles are going to give you a little bit of an issue, even with the speed tank going, as they still are going to splash you for some damage. It's much better if you use this versus ships that do not use missiles. However, even with the missiles with the speed, that's why we have the armor repper. Again, one of the things you can do in this ship if you wanted to be a bit more safer is replace the micro warp drive if you're not going to be using it. And you should be able to do just fine with whatever other type of tanking module you would like to use. I mean, if you were going to go strictly PvE in this ship, there's definitely a lot of changes that I would make. But I wouldn't expect you grabbing this ship and wanting to use primarily for PvE. So if you are going to be flying a ship that you're probably going to be doing some type of PvP in, I would recommend having a PvP fit on at all times to make sure your PvP fit can do PvE content. So this is probably the worst case scenario for this ship, going against the Caldari rats. Even going against the Mimitar rats, they have primarily cannons, and they do have some missiles that they use on you, but not too many, and you can take those out first and be okay. Caldari, there's going to be a lot more missiles. Railguns as well, but a lot more missiles. So at its range of 15 km, it can comfortably orbit at the 1300. Once it does get in there, usually no problems. Okay. So able to take on, rats much larger than itself is one of the advantages to having a speed tank. If you do speed tank on the regular, you probably already know that. Larger ships normally can't do much to you. And it's usually the smaller ships. Clouds of smaller ships are what are going to give you more of the issues. Now, the Weber on this ship is at about 14 km. Yeah. So you will need to set your orbit a little bit closer if you do want to take advantage of that. But one of the cool things about this ship is you pretty much get to dictate the range as long as you're using the beams. You could also use pulses on this and go in at a very close orbit. The pulses would increase your damage by quite a bit. But I think having the extra range in something like this is probably going to be more beneficial in most cases. But that's just my preference. You may differ in that. Again, no real issues whatsoever. Another thing that you might want to look at too is if you are primarily focused on going to be using this ship for PvE encounters, sneaking in and getting stuff done, is possibly putting some type of NOS on there. That might also actually help you out in PvP counters depending on what you're fighting as well. Okay. This is one of the more dangerous scenarios that you're going to be into. Everything does spawn on top of you. It can get pretty rough, especially if you got a web on you. But like I said, this ship can stay out of the web range for most everything. It's really just the missiles that are a big problem. And if you're fighting against ships that aren't using missiles, you probably won't even ever get out of your shields. Because you can pretty much dictate the targets. You're much better than I am. You can take out whatever it is you want to have that's dangerous first. I'm just kind of coming out here to show that this can be done. Again, I would primarily be wanting to take this ship out to nullsec if it was my goal to have the covert ops. So I would probably choose my targets way more wisely than this, and make sure that I am not doing against Caldari rats. I would probably stay against Galente or Amar. I know what you're thinking. Galente and Amar are both, well, the Galente is going to increase my targeting time. Amar itself is going to give me disruption on my lasers, but I don't think it really matters. Yeah, that Drake is really doing a number on us. Ah, the game of circles. Oh, let's actually take out the Drake first. I believe the Drake is the one firing the missiles at us. So I know taking a tier 10 ship into a mission to show that it can speed tank is probably not the greatest showcasing of this ship. If I would have ran out and got some PvP footage or whatnot, but again, I am on the test server, so that's kind of got to be set up ahead of time as well. I'd have to have people out there and whatnot. So it would all kind of be a ranged event no matter what we were doing. But this just kind of gives you a feel that the ship has the ability to do this. And it would also have the ability to hide itself. So it does a pretty good damage. Nowhere near what your battleships and battlecruisers are going to hit. But it's actually extremely good for using small weaponry. Overall, I think this ship would perform quite well, especially if you were already spec'd into small lasers. Locking down targets, scouting out areas. It would definitely be a good step up if you already like the covert op ships in the game. Okay. We just have the Moa left here. So this Moa is not even going to attack anything. And we'll just have our next wave. Next wave's going to be a little bit more rough. We'll have a lot more smaller ships. So we'll get to see how well it performs against that wave. And then I believe we have the final wave. So I think all in all, this ship would be able to perform quite well, doing its roles as a stealth ship. Okay. Orbit this guy first. Second, we're going to tackle this guy. Okay. Last, we'll move in on him. And then it's basically everything but the cleanup. I'm really happy with the way this ship performs. I think it's going to be a really fun ship for people who do fly destroyers. I think if frigates and destroyers are your cup of tea, and that's what you do, that this ship will be able to fulfill a very nice role. Now, for having the T4 rigs and everything on here, is this ship going to be expensive? Probably. It's a tier 10 ship, though. So if you've made it up to tier 10, you probably have a little bit of money in the bank. And if you're a destroyer pilot, in a corporation that focuses on PvP, you're probably going to have access to blueprints and everything to be able to make your modules for your ships. So I actually don't see this fit as being too terribly bad if you were in the proper corporation. Have a ship outfitted, a scout ship outfitted, where it can come in and do a ton of damage as well. I think it's very nice. Okay. The next wave is going to be the biggest, scariest wave. So that one's going to have a lot of the smaller ships on there. Plus, we're going to have two of the big boys. So we might get a Naga and a Drake, or two Drakes, or two Nagas. That'll be the real test if this ship can handle all of that. Then that would probably be the worst case scenario, is having a bunch of missile ships around you, full of a spawn. What the heck? Where did those missiles come from? Hit me from the side. Hmm. What is shooting me? So overall, this would not be something that I would normally be flying. My skills aren't set up in destroyers. These type of ships are not something I would, if anything, if I was going for covert ops ships, I would probably get in one of the covert ops cruisers personally. But I think this ship is definitely shown to be that it can do the job. And it can also fit a much more tanky fit as well if that's your preferable style. I just think, personally, as a covert ops ship, you're not meant to be a tank, really. You're meant to have the element of surprise and try to deliver as much damage as possible. So, there is something to be said for, instead of having the scrams on there, to put the just regular warp disruptors. So you have more of a range, so you can come in and try to grab somebody that way. But I don't know, that would kind of be up to you and your your preference there. Again, I think if you're a scout ship, you're leaving the area to go uncloak and come back in at full capacity. And you're going to have your friends warp in. Or maybe you're not leaving the area and just going to have your friends warp in and uncloak while they're doing so. That being the case, I still think you're coming in kind of as a secondary. You scouted it out, and now you're there to help assist in damage. Okay. We have a lot going on here. But as you can see, we're actually pretty far away. Let's do a hard turn here. Looks like there's a few missile clusters in there. Let's actually attack this Corax here first. He's just a little bit closer, so... Okay. Now we got quite a bit of missiles. Oh. Okay. So we got all the smaller ships down now. Normally that would mean that this ship is safe if they all had railguns, but that's not the case. They all have missiles, so I still think that we're in no issue. Everything should be just fine now. Getting rid of the Blackbird because they do have the NOS on us. So we're going to make sure that that doesn't remain an issue and just take our cap, even though I don't even think they're doing much of a cap drain out here. Still, just procedures. Then I'll move in on the Caracal next. Okay. So extremely safe, really. I mean, if this was going to be your ship of choice, you were trying to get some anomalies done and everything like that, you would be able to do that. You should be able to do some scouts, like I said, in it. Support everybody. I think it's pretty much proven it should be able to do PvE stuff while you're trying to PvP. And has a good enough speed tank to be able to do that. Now, the bigger ships themselves, they're not going to go down nearly as quick. This is basically just a regular news mission, so these are our tier 8 encounters. So you would still have 9 and 10 for difficulty ups on your missions, but if you jumped into a pocket or anything like that, you should be able to take on the ships as long as you pick your targets out correctly. Everything should be fine. It's actually a little bit safer too than running in a frigate, because whenever you go into the frigates in these, if you do get caught, and the rats and everything can actually end up taking you out in bad situations. Where I think the destroyers are going to be a little bit tougher on that aspect. Even when speed tanking, not having much more of a tank, having the ability to actually just not front load DPS into one thing and be able to actually take on quite a bit of stuff is pretty cool as well. Okay. Different things you can do in this ship as well. If you're just out there trying to get your rat on, somebody does come in system, you can always just warp out and then cloak and hide from people as well. So it would be a great defensive use ship as also. So there's a lot of possibilities that this ship would actually have for the purposes of if you live in nullsec. I think it would be a good choice if you do ever make it to tier 10 and are absolutely positively wanting to use destroyers at tier 10. This is probably going to be one of your go-to ships if you use lasers. They do have the equivalents for the other weapons as well. I figured they'll all probably work in a roundabout way. Alright, so that's where I'm going to leave the demonstration at here for this particular ship. Thank you guys for watching. If you're still here, please leave a like on my channel. And also, ring the bell if you want to be notified whenever I release anything new. And leave a comment below if there's any ships that you would like to see on the test server. I would like to hear about it. I'm going to be trying to release as many of them as I can upon these requests, so whenever I do see them in there, there's not going to be any particular order that they do get released in, just whenever I feel like making it. You can also follow me at Twitter and join us on the Discord. Alright, thank you very much, and I will see you next time.